Welcome to Bite Size Dental Marketing. Today I have Jason Hite. Jason's been at Crossroads Tax Advisors since 2022. You're the Director of Business Development. I know on the pre-show you talked about your dad being a dentist. I would love to hear your journey through dentistry.
Yes. So my dad was a dentist in the Kansas City, Missouri area for over 40 years. And I'd like to think he was very successful. His retirement certainly shows that he had some success. He's enjoying that now out in Arizona. But just being around it, I thought about going into it when I went into college. Didn't really like the biology too much, and so ended up eventually getting into education and and then some coaching of swimming, which I did through college. I'm sorry, I was a college swimmer, and then did that high school coaching, and then got into college coaching, and then I'm out of that now. And Chris Quadros, who's the owner and head CPA at Crossroads, he and I had known each other. My youngest and his oldest are good friends and on the same swim team, and so we talked. And with my background in dentistry and sales, selling programs and things like that, and recruiting, then he felt like it was a good match. And here we are, almost 2 years later, in the journey with Crossroads and the getting back into the dental world. And I've enjoyed almost every moment of it.
Nice. Now, when you were growing up, and your dad being the dentist, is there a specific memory you have of like going to work with him or him discussing a patient, or like what's your most vivid memory of your dad and the dentistry?
Yeah, so a couple of them, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Every night he would come home while dinner was getting cooked. He'd kind of decompress, but he would always have a dental magazine. And then there were a couple different occasions where my mom was gone with my two older sisters and an emergency came up. And so we'd go into the office. And then the other one was I was a guinea pig for the orthodontist who was our neighbor and one of his really good friends. And so I remember having all of these different things done to my mouth, stretched and pulled and pushed every different direction you can by Dr. Elrod. And I think part of that was because I was Stan Hite's son. So those are a few of my memories of all of that.
When you look at the challenges he had, how does it sort of relate to the challenges you see dentists having today?
Some of the challenges, maybe insurance. Insurance was very different back then.
Yeah.
I hope it's okay to say that was one of the reasons he got out of dentistry after his 40 plus years. And he still stays active. I mean, he keeps his CEs up and loves to do volunteer work. He goes to the Hope House, things like that. When he travels back home, he'll come in and be an associate for a friend in the Kansas City area for maybe a day or two. He's trying to connect with some people out in Arizona now. And it's kind of funny because now I'm kind of helping him get connected with people. Remind me of the question there. I digressed.
Oh, no, just the challenges he faced. How do they compare to?
So I think insurance was one. I can remember being a stressful time when the AIDS, HIV pandemic happened. I guess if that's the right word to use. The unknowns of that. I remember that being a stressful time in the 80s. And, I think that he never really had to experience the shortage of hygienists. He never really had to deal with that. He never had a problem keeping them employed or losing them and not being able to hire back. So I'm trying to think of some of the other challenges. He seemed to do pretty well in the Kansas City area. He was well plugged into UMKC Dental School, the American Dental Association, the Greater Kansas City Dental Society. And so, I think he always did a good job of staying on top of things. So I don't know that he fell victim to some of those things, but I know there were challenges, definitely. I would say that that medical one was probably the one that stood out the most to me.
That's so well. I was very young in that time of my life, but I can remember it talked about on the news every single night, just the AIDS epidemic. And I don't know the nomenclature to use, medically to describe it. It was so powerful. Yeah. Now, I mean, that's so great. Going through that journey has to prepare you to talk to dentists today about the things that Crossroads does. I'd love to hear kind of what you guys do, and then a little bit about like what's an ideal client for you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great questions. I think what our goal ultimately is to do is to keep dentists chairside and help them enjoy, the fruits of their labor. So by how we do that is we are a full service bookkeeping, accounting, tax strategy, CPA firm. We do specialize in dentistry. However, we do work with some other private healthcare. We have a couple vets and chiropractor and, some things like that as well. But really what our goal is to do is to have constant communication with our clients. And then we also provide them through that bank reconciliation. We're going to provide them a monthly P&L. And that's really going to help drive discussions and decisions on, what to do next to help them reach their goals. So we do, like I said, pride ourselves on that communication piece. And so, they all have Chris's cell phone number. A lot of them have mine. And, we'll be sitting here in the office and he'll get be working on something. He'll get a text from one of our clients and it's just a little question. And, and we're able to just, whether it be a question about, something, should I do this build out? Can you connect me with somebody in marketing? Whatever it may be, we just try to be a trusted advisor to all our clients. We really do value that relationship piece with our clients and knowing what they really want to achieve.
Now, when clients come on board, what typically is their journey? Like how do you get integrated with them? How do you get your arms around? And are you handling both the personal and the business? Talk me through that initial journey.
Yeah. So when let's just say somebody came to you and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a CPA. Do you know anybody in the dental industry?" You'd send them to me. I'd be their first stop. And I'm going to set up a 30-minute call with them and just have that conversation about, some of it is tell me, do you own your business? Tell me a little bit about your practice, but it's also the whys, why is your process this way? Do you, with your invoices, do you, collect them in their paper and then you keep them in an accordion file?
Mm-hmm.
And we're completely digital here at Crossroads and we pride ourselves on that. And so, it's finding out why they do their process and if they're open to a different process. Mm-hmm. And because ours is different from that, it is going to be, we are going to take pictures and, scan things in and put things through emails and make it very streamlined. And, it just allows you to be able to track all that information just much easier, much safer than putting it in that accordion file that could get water damage or fire damage, or the black ink rubs off, and you can no longer read that receipt or that invoice. So we try to keep it simple, and then keeping track of what industry standards are. How much money do you spend on marketing? What should your overhead be? And if the overhead's too high, we try to find ways to drive it down. So it's just trying to be a constant help to them.
Now, what are their big objections? Like typically, what are the objections they have, or what's the blocking point for them to join Crossroads? Because for us, I think it comes down to three, for marketing. Number one, I think sometimes people say, I've never done marketing, but they have 8 sponsorships and they're on 2 billboards and they have a website and they think of marketing as the $600 on the website, not the other things, to do it. So I think there's like almost a price shock of, oh, wow, you guys are, 3% of collections or whatever the number is. Yes. I spend $600 on marketing. Well, you actually spend near 3%, but it's spent pretty poorly. I think the second one is just poor cultural fits. Like they want to know how much we pay our SEO person, and I'm like, hey, you're paying me for an outcome, not an hour. Like you're not buying an hour of time. You're buying a good product in marketing. And there's the dentist that wants to know exactly how everything's built. I said, this is kind of like someone coming in and saying, how much is the block of crown? How much is the block of ceramic for your crown?
Yes.
Well, that's not the indicative of the price, the actual, $1,300, $1,400, $1,700. Like I'm paying for the craftsmanship and the thing. But we have some that are like, how much does that block of ceramic cost? I'm like, not for me. I think the third is there's advertising and there's marketing and there's branding, and they're coming in wanting a specific one, not understanding that the three tie together. So we've kind of bucketed our chief, reasons that people may not go with us. And that, what is it on the Crossroads tax side?
Yeah, cost is a lot of times difficult. Sometimes they've come from a CPA who maybe doesn't specialize in the dental world, so they don't know as much about it as we do.
Hmm.
And so that can be a little bit of a sticker shock. I think sometimes it is, some people like to do their own books, and because they want to have their hands in them and they don't want to give them up. That's not the right kind of client for us. I think that was a question you asked earlier, is
Yeah.
what's an ideal client? And that would be one thing, is we want to be the ones doing your books. You take care of what you went to school to take care of. Let us take care of what we went to school to take care of. And then, some people don't necessarily want all the communication. They want the basics, and they want somebody to prepare their taxes, and they want to do their own advising. And well, I'll figure out if this is the right time to do a build out. I'll figure out if I need to connect with a marketing person. I'll figure out, whatever it may be. And so I think that's another one, is just people wanting and being okay giving up a little bit of control in the in the game. So those are the two biggest ones that I've run across. There are other little ones that we've run into a couple times that, we are located in Indianapolis. We have clients across 30 different states. We've also run across, well, I don't want to meet you on virtually. I want to meet you in person. And so if they're out in California, they're going to say, there's just no way this can work because you guys are 3 hours, behind or ahead of us in time. And so if I want to meet at 5 o'clock, that's 8 o'clock for you. And so that would never work. But we've always found ways to, to make that work for our several clients that are on the West Coast.
Yeah, we have the same problem, and it's easily solvable. I always joke, Andre and I came from GameStop, where, especially in the times leading up to Black Friday, we could only release at midnight. The code, right, of GameStop.com where we worked. We'd have to pull all nighters, like we'd have to be released at midnight and stay to the next day. And every, of course, once a month I can do that. That's not too much to ask. I can see a client on the West Coast at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris was in Hawaii earlier this summer for his wife's work. He was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to have what would be, 9 or 10 o'clock meetings here on the East Coast. And he just kept the same time. And I get a little bit of paradise, but I've got to make some sacrifices too. And so we make sure we do that.
Yeah. Now, how often are you meeting with the client? Like walk me through the year's engagement, right? I mean, there's the sort of tactical bookkeeping and you mentioned the monthly P&L, there's tax planning, and I want to go from there to, I would love to hear what you're seeing in the industry sort of after that. But for now, kind of walk me through the year in engagement.
Yes. So we also have, as part of our service to our clients, is two, we call them the big biannual meetings. And really what we do is we pull them away from the office. We have this hour-long meeting. We also like to bring in other trusted advisors. So whether that be their wealth management, person, or, sometimes it's their practice management coach. We've had, the marketing people on there before. And it's, hey, where are we right now? What are the key, performance indicators that you're really concerned with? Let's touch on those. How are collections? How is the, how many new patients are you seeing, and how many of those are turning into actual patients? And, is there a disconnect? What are your issues with staffing? And so we try to be that resource for them. We'll also meet behind the scenes with some of those people. But it kind of depends on what the client wants. But we definitely do that in June, July, is where our big client meetings are. And then obviously later in the year, we go October, November. December tends to be a little bit crazy for everybody. So we have some that straggle and get into in that month as well. But for the most part, it's June, July, and then we go, October, November. And we're able to really just, you're going to get on there with Chris, and you're going to get on there with Luke, who's one of our CPAs. And then you're going to get on there with whoever your account manager is, Debbie or Lee. And you're just going to have a good discussion. And like I said, if that means your CFP's in there as well, great. If it means your marketing person's in there, it means your practice management consultant's in there, that's great too. It's just bringing everybody together to make sure everybody's on the same page to move forward over the next 6 months and make sure the goals, everybody's on the same page to reach the goals.
Now, you've had to see some trends coming out of COVID, and I know you mentioned, I think it was on the pre-show, you mentioned the hygiene shortage and the labor shortage. And I feel through the labor shortage, the hygiene shortage, I don't know is going to go away for the next 5 or 6, 7 years. But what are you seeing as the trends in the offices you're operating?
Yeah, that's a big one. That's one of the top hot topics. Another one is insurance. There is a large trend in dentistry right now to be getting away from insurance and going into fee for service. And so we're doing some things. We met at All Star Dental Academy. So we've actually partnered with them and doing a webinar series. And the very first one we did was last month was on canceling cancellations. The one that's coming up here at the end of September is on insurance freedom or insurance management. And we're going to really get into those that are, kind of bound by insurance and what that means. And if you're okay with that, great. If you're trying to get away from that, it's a scary time. And then the last one we're going to do is case acceptance, which is another big thing. It's okay. I've got all these people coming in and they're doing their hygiene and we're seeing issues. And then we're suggesting to them to do X, Y, and Z. And then they see the cost. And it's us trying to figure out how to communicate to them. How do we keep you healthy? Everything goes in through the mouth. And so if the mouth is healthy, probably a better chance than everything and the rest of the way is. That's a philosophy that I've always heard. And so it's getting those docs to be able to take them from that regular hygiene to needing something else and understanding why it's important. So I think those are a few things that we see right now. Higher prices right now in construction still. So people buying buildings or building new buildings, that's a little bit slower right now, but I think that's coming out of, DSOs is always going to be a big deal, or I should say always, but right now it's a big deal. The idea of bringing in associates and how to make that work the best for you, that's another hot topic that's going on right now.
You mentioned DSOs. Do you do a lot of work in the space?
No, we do not. We have had a client go to a DSO and we continue to do their books. And then we've had one go to a DSO and they separated from us. But for the most part, we've talked to some different DSOs and we've always have our hands in the knowledge of what's going on. But we don't specifically work with any DSOs right now.
Now, there's papers out there, and if you look at the history of pharmacy, the history of the medical, vet certainly has come on very aggressively. Optometry, you reach about an 80% consolidation into the private equity markets. I've heard everything from 20 to 30% right now. Do you feel, does your gut say that you're going to reach that 70 to 80% in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? It's coming, right? You're not going to stop the money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to hope so. And, I guess time will tell, but, hopefully that's where we will be.
Yeah, I would imagine so. We've seen, the other group that has surprised me that's come on very aggressively in private equity is the guys who focus on implants, the implant providers. They have been bought up so quickly this year. And that's so aggressive. Yeah. Now, when you look out at the next, 12 months, 16 months, 18 months, like where are you guys going at Crossroads? Like, are you going to be at any shows? Are you going to be, you mentioned the webinar, you're going to be, what's next for you guys? What's out there?
Yes. Yeah. So we have a couple, we have an event next week up in Michigan. We are with a spear group that is, that's one of our clients, and they head up a spear study group. And we're going to be presenting at their big yacht club event up in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Sounds fancy.
Yeah, it does sound fancy. I'm going to have to get my tuxedo out.
Yeah, you are, buddy.
My old Hugh Hefner hat. So, and then we have another event, another webinar with All Star Dental Academy. We've got an event with Patterson and a a mover and a shaker named Doug Fettig that is a former CPA that we've partnered with, and he's speaking at the Patterson Education Days in Wisconsin Dells. In that same time, we're doing another event with All Star. We'll be out at their Portland, Maine event for their next Mastery Series, and so those are the big ones left for this month. And we've just scheduled something in January in Kansas City to speak at a study club. So we're always looking for opportunities just to really try to be helpful to dentists. And we feel like that's the best way we can show our value, is to show that the different things that we can do and what it means to be a client here, and what all that includes. Is it's not just about us doing your books. We're also going to provide these opportunities where, if cancellations is a huge issue for you, we're going to provide this opportunity for you to listen to this podcast, this webinar, and maybe put that into play in your practice and see what happens. And then it also exposes them to people like the All-Star Dental Academy and Doug Fettig, and just different people that are positive influencers in our industry, in our space.
Now, do you ever dream of doing your own event?
Yes, we've tried to do some different things, and we have done some different things. Probably the biggest one that we did was during COVID. Was everybody shut down. Crossroads stayed in here. We kept everybody going. Obviously, it was virtual, but it was constant Zoom presentations about what all this means and what you need to be doing. And so not only our clients that they stayed tuned in, we had a lot of other people that utilized that, and we're very thankful, because a lot of places just stopped, and Chris and crew continued to push forward and continue to see what different states were doing, what the U.S. government was doing, and how that impacted everybody, and how the dentists and docs could stay on top of the game. So we're going to continue to grow here. We've hired 2 new people in the last month, and it's exciting times for us, and we are just looking to to continue to serve people, but make sure we have the infrastructure so that we can serve them the way that we want to serve them.
Jason, very well said. That's a good place to wrap up today. Yeah, that's great.
Well, I appreciate this time.
Yeah, next time you have an event, you need to call us. We'll come bring our cheerleaders and have a good time.
That sounds great. Well, I look forward to seeing you again at whether it be an All-Star event or something else. But I enjoyed getting to know you, and have enjoyed I enjoyed the opportunity just to talk, and a little bit about the dental space, a little bit about some other stuff too. So all the best to you.
Yeah, you too, Jason. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.